We're recording. Well, welcome again. This is ISITHU, and this is an opportunity for the mentor. Let me start over with that. Okay. Well, welcome again. This is ISITHU, and this is a program that will support our mentoring program and our fatherhood initiative. And today I have Brother Raybo with me. Brother Raybo has been a strong, hard worker for our fraternity for years, and also a dedicated brother in the community, helping others and helping the youth. But before we talk about who he is today, I want to know a little bit about little Raybo. Who was little Raybo, and how did he get to be who we know in 2022, 2023, 2024, and for years to come?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Dr. Smith. It's truly a pleasure for me to have an opportunity to talk to you, and hopefully the message, the vision that I have and my past experiences will touch some young person. My dad used to always say, son, you can't save everybody, but if you can save one, then you've done something. So little Raybo was the fifth son of 6 boys, born to Josephine and Roland Bourgeois. And I grew up in the hood, 3rd Ward, Texas, heart of Houston. I saw it all. Later in life, grew up working at an inner city pawn shop clothing store and became a certified jeweler after receiving a master's in chemistry and biology. But little Raybo is a gentleman that was blessed. And I say that looking back so sincerely. I had a mother and father that was always there for me. My dad was a mechanic, but he always came home to wrestle with his son. And those are memories I had. Now, we were all bigger than my dad because he was only 5'6". But he was a mechanic, so his wrists were strong and his hands were strong. So we could flip him, but man, he would hold you and couldn't get away.
That grown man strength.
Yes. Have us hollering uncle before we wanted to.
Right.
But that's my joy. And I realize in working with youth today and in the past, a lot of kids didn't have a day. My dad gave me so many little things that he taught us about wisdom and respect and opening the door for a lady and pulling a chair out so a lady could sit down, and just being a man. And I realized that kids with a single parent can still learn these qualities, but a man's input is so important. And that's been my dedication for the last 48 years working with youth programs. And I just plan on continuing.
Well, brother, your resume is long and strong. And it's very touching to be able to hear that you had such a positive role model in your father. And then you transitioned that into being a positive role model for other people. And you mentioned, that kind of qualities of a man. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. When I work with kids today, a lot of them from the inner city where I coach middle school basketball and high school age basketball. And let me say, I never got paid for that. I did not want to pay. As a matter of fact, I often say when you give me an award for working with kids, it's like getting paid for eating ice cream. I mean, come on, man, that's what I like doing. Why you got to pay me? But okay, we're good.
Right.
But manhood, oh my goodness. I would coach kids, and from the inner city, kids have to learn how to defend themselves. And they begin to equate manhood with being physical.
Right.
And that you have to be stronger physically than the next person to prove you're a man. When in actuality, we know that's not true. Today, society looks at you almost to 16 in some cases as being a man.
Yeah.
But we know manhood is not just physical, it's mental also.
Right.
And that is so important. And it was always my objective to try and train that middle school kid how to be a man, how to say yes, sir, no, sir. Thank you, ma'am, no, ma'am. One of the things that I had to deal with when I would send kids from my inner city to advanced educational places was to teach them how to look a person of a different background in the eye. May not seem like much,
Okay.
but kids, when you're working with them, have a tendency to look down and away.
Yeah.
I had to teach them to look the person talking to them in the eye. And I remember distinctly, I sent the kid to a high school other than mine, and he was a superstar on the team. In the 9th grade, he was playing on the varsity, but I went to one of the games and I noticed when the coach would talk to him, he would be pointing his finger at him. And he was only one of 2 young men of color on the team, but he was a superstar. But the coach actually told him at one game, don't look at me. Whoa, that kind of rubbed me a little different. So I had a meeting with the coach after talking to the mom and dad. I had a meeting with the coach and I explained to him, because he was young, fresh out of college, had a super basketball team, but he had a mentality of kids not looking in the eye. And I explained to the importance for a Black kid to understand early in life, he must look a man in the eye. And we had that conversation. He didn't. I used some influence from other locations, other people, to impress him how important it was. So it changed. Okay. But can you imagine if I left that unchecked over the years? Well, I can respond today. The kid is a lawyer. So he really knows how to look you in the eye.
Right.
But go ahead on. I'm sorry.
That's a needed lesson. You know, just those little techniques sometimes that is part of the whole manhood development. You know, it's like we have in our rites of passage programs, and even in our fatherhood initiative, where we have to learn lessons that we might not have received growing up, so we can be better for our children. Yes. So you're right on point. Thank you.
I had another thing that I used to work with my young boys with, and that was the mother ties. Teaching the kid to turn loose of holding on to the dress of their mom. Let me kind of explain that.
Okay.
When you're coaching, parents would come into the gym and see me hollering at their kids. That's just the way it was. If you played sports, you know the coach's responsibility is to prepare him for the next level. Or you want to win. Don't misunderstand that. But you know, at an early age, it's so important to prepare him for the next level. If not, that's the coach's fault. Well, I'd be getting on my kids, and I've had many parents come up to me and say, wow, you really be on him. You had my son run an extra lap. I said, because your son wouldn't run the routes that I told him to do. And I told him when we're on a fast break to pass the ball to the open man, not for him to ball hog it, pass it off. She said, well, he's one of your best players. I said, and yes, he can sit on the pine with me. And the kid had in his head that he was a superstar and I couldn't put him on the bench. And I showed him the difference.
Right.
And then little things that some moms will do, come into the gymnasium and ask their son, where's your bag? Where's your bag, your gym bag? And they go pick it up and carry it out to the car. I didn't allow that. Every man carried his bag out of the gym. Now, once they left the gym, if you want to carry their bag, that's your problem.
Right.
But in my gym, my kids carry their bag. One mom said, my son lost his shorts. I said, well, he can't play. That's called responsibility. And you teach that early, so later in life, it's not excuses. Right. And those were some little things that I picked up, and I called it holding on to the mama's dress. You know, little kids run around, and mom say, hold my dress or hold my hand. We're gonna cross the street. Well, it comes a point that, especially for boys, they got to learn to take their mom's release their mom's dress in hand and move
Right.
on. Yeah.
You know, and those are important lessons because for many of the Black men and young Black men that I've interviewed doing research, they always go back to a coach, a
Yeah.
teacher, or a pastor,
Yeah.
right? And so those voices, those lessons that can be instilled by those people, those important people, can develop from a seed to a tree, to an oak tree. And we know that just those words, just those lessons instill discipline, manhood training, and it's something that can be used to be passed down. Yeah, so tell us more about how we can learn from some of the experiences that you've had throughout your life and the various mentoring or programs or whatever, coaching.
We being in and working where I did and growing up there and in coaching, I knew a lot of the movers and shakers in the community.
Okay.
And I say that openly. I knew everything from the policeman to the pimp, to the lady on the street,
Right.
because of the environment that I worked in. So I tried to use that knowledge that I have to pass on to help that kid become better. One example was the guy that was over the juvenile detention here in the city of Houston was a friend of mine. And I had 3 kids on my team that were super intelligent, good in the books, but they thought they had all the street sense that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept trying to instill in them that you really don't know it all because you've not experienced it. You're eating 3 meals a day. Your mom brings you to school. You're doing homework, you're making A's and B's. I'm proud of you. But that's not all. It's another side, and be grateful for what you have.
Mm-hmm.
So I started, and they called it later in life, the Get Straight program, where they would take them to jails and teach them. I was doing this in the mid 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a group of about 8 kids and brought them in. And the young man, the gentleman that I knew that was over the juvenile, he set up for some of the inmates to talk to them. But I told him, I said, I want you to get me some youngsters that's 15, 16 years old, that's been in the system, that's stuck in the system. That's closer to their age of 13, I should say 12 to 15, 16. Let them talk to them.
Okay.
And we set it up. I wish you could have seen the face of the young men that I brought in when those doors close and they lock.
Mm-hmm.
And the guard tells you it'll take me 2 minutes to get in to stop if something happens. And I was so blessed. My friend in the jail, he got the right kids to say, look, you don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. It's a fight every day for food, and it's a fight every day for ownership of your possessions. He said, just think, you wake up, you fight, you go to sleep, you fight. He said, I don't want you to have to go through that. He said, I was an A student too. I understand some of y'all are good students. I was, but I thought I knew everything. I got busted. And now I have 4 years I have to serve. I have to serve. And I'm going to be locked in this predicament for 4 years. And the face on some of those young men, it was dramatic. Again, I worked it out with the parents because I told them it's going to be scary to them. They might not sleep 1 or 2 nights.
Right.
And they all agreed, Raymond, look, I've seen what you've done with other kids. Let's try. I don't think you can kill them. And thank God it did work. Right. It did work. I can say that 2 of those young men went on to college. 1 didn't make college, but he's a married family man raising his family. And I think that's all I really wanted. Right. That's enough for me. Be productive and positive in society. So yeah, that's and I did that for about 18 years with those special kids that needed a shaking, if that's a good word.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the lessons that young boys and young men need to learn about how society might view them differently or treat them differently. What messages would you have for them?
Yeah, that is that's a good one. I know we talk about being equal, but in the real world, a young Black kid is not equal to a kid of another color. Society looks at you off the top as being different. They look at you as being aggressive. They look at you as being uneducated. They look at you as not being able to solve the everyday problems that most kids deal with. So they judge you differently. You're found guilty before you even open your mouth. I'm reminded of the coaching way that I coached. I believed well, I coached basketball. I believed in pressing. And I didn't run my kids till their tongues fall out, but I ran them to know that they had to be to a spot on the court before the offense got to that spot in order to play defense. And if you play good defense, the offense will take care of itself. We were reported as an aggressive team. When we would get to a gym, I've had referees to tell me, why are your kids so aggressive? I said, let me ask you, did they foul? No, they didn't foul, but they're so aggressive when they play. I said, well, tell me, what am I teaching them wrong? They should be weak and back up and let the man shoot? Is that what you're telling me? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they're aggressive. And that's the mentality that we're recognized by. Now, I back that by saying, teaching middle school for 40 plus years, we won the city championship over 35 times.
Wow.
I've sent 22 from middle school to high school, and 12 played pro. So I say all of that we must be doing something right, or we did something right. But we were, and let me clear that up a little bit. We were playing middle schools with an enrollment of 250 to 280. The lowest probably 160. We badly broke 100 kids at our school.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive. And that has a lot to do with the kids now and the parents that allowed me to teach the kids the game. But that aggressiveness that we taught them how to play. You learn it on the football field. They say, oh, in basketball, you shouldn't be that aggressive. Well, we wasn't fouling. We always had less foul, but we were stealing like crazy.
Right.
But yeah, society does look at kids different just because they're Black. Yeah.
So, I mean, with that, you've been able to have kind of a track record and a pipeline from middle school to high school to college. So you're part of that pipeline of success. So what did you instill in those early years in the children about their academics, about scholarship?
Oh man. As I stated, the high school, private high schools here in the city that I'm able to help, and boys and girls, by the way, I need to admit, I always look for a student athlete, student first and athlete second.
Right.
And if not an athlete, at least a good student. Try to instill in them early in life that academics is what will sustain you to the next level with your attitude. I used to always say attitude, academics, and ability. Those are my 3 A's. Those are the things. Without that scholarship, without that ability to learn, retain knowledge, and use it wisely, it's going to be hard to make it in the world we live in. And we've seen in the last 20 plus years, it's enough to know, be book smart. You got to have some street sense with it.
Right.
I'm amazed that so many kids and I'm assigned biology, chemistry major, and my daughters are based in the same arena also, health profession and what have you. But we learned that the way you have to think outside the box, you've got the book knowledge, but you got to think outside the box in this society. And to compete, you've got to be able to do that. So I tried to teach them at an early age to think on their own, to make decisions. You know, a kid come up to me and say, Coach, should we run the ball to the right side? I said, what do you think? I never said yes. I said, what do you think? I want him to think. And you find that when you're coaching, if you're doing a fairly good job, you're not hollering. I used to laugh at Coach hollering at kids. I hollered in practice now. Let's make sure that's understood. But in the game, there was no need to holler if you coached them right. They'll
Right.
figure it out. They'll
Mhm.
figure it out. And I use that as a lesson to teach them for the books in the classroom. The teacher tells you to go to such and such page, you read it, understand it. Now, can you apply that to your life? And take that with you all the way to college, to high school. I was so impressed. My little school that I worked with, middle school, we found out in the 4 public schools that are adjacent to us, for almost 8 years, the valedictorian salutatorian was from our school at the public school. So that said something for us. And every year they would constantly say, look, if they're not going to those private schools you have, please send them to us, because we kept the ones in the top 25% were from us. And my love was always speech and debate. So I tried to work with them on that also, thinking outside the box, judging or saying something and defending it. Why did you say that? Why do you think that way? But just, that kind of mental thought.
Right.
So yeah, scholarship to me is, whoa, second to none.
Right. So I want to kind of come back full circle,
Okay.
almost where we started. And that was with your father. And I want to talk about some of the examples, some of the statements that he instilled in you and your siblings that really empowered you to make you who you are. So let's spend a little time, especially as we get towards the end here, to talk about him, and so other fathers can see how a father can be a positive example, that positive role model. It doesn't have to be outside the house.
Oh yeah. My dad used to say, wisdom comes with age and experiences. He says, son, if I could sell wisdom, I'd be rich. Didn't understand that totally when you're 10, 12, 13 years old. But later in life, you understand the little things that he told you, the way he taught us to use our hands to do things. He would always make you think and figure out how to make something work. He never was far away. He was overshadowing, but he let you take the lead. Taught us early in life about the different wrenches that you use, a flathead, a Phillips, those little things. Didn't seem like much. We took it for granted. How important it is today. I've got 2 girls and they know the difference between a flathead and a Phillips. Those are the little things. So they can do their own repairs, especially when they're off to college. Little things. Being independent. My dad used to tell us, watch and listen before you speak. A lot of people will open their mouth and you really find out where they're coming from fast. Listen. Be quiet for a minute and listen to what someone is saying. You might not agree with them either, but just listen to them. Hear them out. He was one that truly had time for his sons. As I told you, every day he would come home and spend time with us. Had us we were in Boy Scouts. We were youth programs. We were in basketball down the street. He was there swimming. He had us all swimming at 5, 6 years old. My dad's education went to the 6th grade, by the way. He was out of Louisiana. My mom went to the 5th. But yet he knew the importance of an education. And there's another flip of that. We were all raised Catholic. My dad was a strong Baptist, very involved in his church. But he took us to church on Sunday morning. And many times he attended with us. And on occasions, we would attend his services as his Baptist church. That education overall was so important later on in life. When he died, it's amazing, in the Catholic Church, we have priests. There were people in church that were upset that my daddy was not being buried in the Catholic Church. They thought he was Catholic. Well, he was at the church with us all the time.
Mhm.
Anytime we had a bazaar or work or Boy Scouts or he was repairing the cars at the church, you name it, he was there with us. They did not know he was Baptist.
Wow.
There were 6 priests at his Baptist funeral in his church that showed up for him. So that was
Mhm.
kind of special to me. But those are the things he instilled in us, giving back and the importance of respecting one another. He used to allow us to wrestle and fight one another when we were young. That is a great lesson for a strong family, doing it while you're young.
Right.
Today, me and my brothers don't have no disagreements. I mean, it's amazing. I said, Ed, I don't like that. He said, well, what you gonna do about it? I said, well, nothing. Those little things.
Mhm.
You realize how important it was for your development
Mhm.
and the way he was there to make sure everything was right. Always hands on. I had a hands-on dad, and mom was just unbelievable. Hey, I've been cooking and washing dishes since I was 6, y'all, on a high chair.
Right.
So all those things were important.
Right, right, right. Well, now, as we come to our close, what final word would you have for the young boys and the mentors in our mentorship program and the fathers in our fatherhood program?
For the young boys, I would say, and I'm gonna bring the relationships into this a little bit. When they're growing up, I know most of them admire their parents and how important that is. And to use those things, and I'm saying this because I've experienced kids that had problems with relationships in life because they had no foundation to base relationships on. So I'm saying that kids have to look at the person that they may like or love later in life. My dad used to say, son, there's 2 types of ladies in the world. One that you bring home to your mom, to me, and the other one that you can't bring home to your mom, to me, but you treat them both the same.
Mm.
You treat them both the same. Treat them both with respect.
Mhm.
Growing up in the hood, watching ladies of the night working, those became some friends of mine.
Mhm.
Because of the way I worked and where I worked, I got to know them.
Mhm.
They handle business, and you respect them for who they are. You couldn't call it out, but I think a young man has to learn that early in life. The one you bring home to mom and the one that you can't, but treat them both just alike.
Right.
That, to me, that's something that stuck with me. That's a message he gave us at an early age of 6 boys, and I'm blessed. We've all been married and still married. My brothers that died, they were still married. So one wife,
Mhm.
ups and downs,
Oh, yeah.
same wife.
Mhm.
Anybody that said there was been no problems, I'm 37 years deep. Anybody not had a problem, I don't know what marriage you was in.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just the real world. So I want to teach them early in life. It's going to be ups and downs,
Mhm.
but surviving them and trying to make it work is what's important. That perseverance that we talk about in the fraternity and
Right.
how important that is to try and see it through,
Mhm.
make it work. Choosing the right person. Bring them home to your mom and dad.
Right.
Bring that lady home to mom. Let her meet mom and dad. You go meet her parents too.
Mhm.
So important.
Oh, yeah. Well, Brother Raybo Bourgeois, this has been a pleasure. And I'm sure all the people who are going to watch this over and over will take away many key points from you and your parents and the things that you've done throughout your life. So I really appreciate you spending this time with us.
Dr. Smith, it is truly my pleasure. I admire brothers like you that push brothers like me to do better.
Well,
And I just say thank you and keep pushing because I need it from time to time. Just like my dad whispering in my ear. I appreciate it. Thank you. I hope I've been a help.
Brother, you laid a roadmap for us, so that's something that we're still following.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.